This is Dave Savage. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach weekly call on insane productivity. So this call, for anyone that's new to it, was inspired from the program that we created with Darren Hardy called Insane Productivity with Mortgage Coach. All of the leaders on this call have been through that program multiple times. If you have not been through that program, it's Darren Hardy's product. There is a link to it on the Facebook page. It's posted to the top. So we can't recommend it enough. It's the best personal productivity training I have been through. It's a 12-week program. There's also a Mortgage Coach discount of $500 for anybody that goes through it. And so this call that we do on a weekly basis was inspired by that product, was inspired by 40 weeks of masterminding that I did with folks that were part of it. But you know, this call going forward, it's for the mortgage community to help make loan officers more productive, more effective at doing their job, and of course, increasing their loan production. So last week we had the call was totally focused on video. It was a little bit different than our typical call. I'm scrolling down right now because I wanted to make sure they noticed it was recorded, it was posted. I believe we've had 76 people view that call. And again, it was all focused on video. I do want to make sure everybody knows that I did take my personal notes. I put them in a Google document. I made that link available to the community. And so this is a document on some homework assignments, you know, other videos to make video better. I also added some notes, you know, around what types of videos are being done in the mortgage industry, how top loan officers are capturing it, how they're packaging their videos, how they're promoting videos, keys to success, and a couple creative processes. So upon, you know, to kick off that call last week, by the way, is my screen showing? Oh, there it is. My screen is showing. Is my screen showing, by the way? Todd Bookspan, can someone confirm?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool. So to kick off last week, I asked how many folks are creating video daily, weekly, monthly, or never. And then to close that call, I pushed a poll, who's going to start creating videos? You know, after this call, how often are you going to start creating it? And pretty much there was like a few people that said never. So, you know, in the spirit of accountability, I want to know, you know, where are you at today? You know, who is creating videos daily? Who is creating videos weekly? Who's creating videos monthly? You know, never, right now, 40% of you have said never. Last week, it was 60%. That tells me that a lot of you did not take action since last week. By the way, we're at 50% have answered this question. It looks like the daily's up, the weekly's up, everything's up. Never is still close to the same. So, you know, I asked this survey question. I'm going to show the results, by the way, for the leaders on today's call to see. This is, you know, one of the things, if you want to get the maximum value from these weekly productivity calls that we have, you got to take action. You got to make a video. So one of the homework assignments for everybody on this call after today's call is to create that video. The Mortgage Coach video is the easiest video to create. But again, however you create video, we just want to get you creating videos daily, weekly, monthly, so you can be more effective, more productive, and drive your volume. So before I hand it off to Todd Bookspan to provide a briefing, do any of the leaders have any follow-up comments from last week's call? Dave Gallegos, anything you want to, you know, put some color around?
No, it's just accountability is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought more would have, you know, like when we asked that poll question at the end, everybody committed to a video. So disappointed we didn't get, you know, a bigger percentage of people creating one. Any ideas, Dave, to get them to?
Well, I got a couple, but that, you know, you do what you know, it's like it goes back to insane productivity, doing what you say you're going to do, scheduling. So we just had this conversation this morning with, I do a check-in meeting with my management group every morning, and somebody brought up how, yeah, I want to make they're just talking about doing things they said they were going to do, and I brought up the whole idea of, well, when you schedule a doctor's appointment, you always go, right? Because you have an appointment. So if you schedule an appointment to shoot a video in your calendar that's blocked, like it's non-negotiable, and that term seems so military, right? Like non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Well, that's the goal, is to make something non-negotiable so that you actually follow through. And so if you had an appointment with a client or a real estate agent, that'd be non-negotiable. So treat anything like that as non-negotiable. So if you have an appointment in your calendar to shoot a video, it's got to be as non-negotiable as an appointment with a borrower or a real estate agent. So there you go. That's my advice.
Yeah, no, it's great wisdom. So for those of you that checked the question last week that, hey, I'm going to create a video, what do you say to scheduling it? You know, schedule, even though it might only be a 1 minute or a 3 minute video, schedule 20 minutes, schedule 30 minutes. If you have some learning to do it, schedule, you know, an hour, but schedule that time and treat it like a client meeting, treat it like a realtor meeting, but get it done. You know, I do this call to make change, to help you be more successful. And best way to do that is to take action on the advice. So with that said, we've got Mr. Todd Brookspan, my co-host for this call. We have Todd back, and Todd's been on personal vacation. So welcome back, my friend.
Oh, it's so good to be back. We were chatting before the call, and I definitely missed this call in particular. But you know, I told Dave I think sometimes there's such a thing as too much vacation, but I won't complain. I had a great time for sure.
Well, it's good to have you back. This call is a mastermind, everybody. So if you do have questions or topics, submit those, either go to webinar or put them in our Facebook page. But I had asked Todd, because him and I have been having a lot of questions offline about, you know, some leadership he could bring to the call, and just to provide a bit of a 20-minute briefing that would be helpful and make us all more productive. And Todd has a cool project that we are going to be the first to hear about in the mortgage industry. So Todd, I'm going to hand it off to you to provide a briefing and to share what's new with Todd Brookspan and what you're bringing to the industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I'm really excited to talk about my little pet project I've been working on. It's something I'm super passionate about. I do want to mention real quick from an accountability perspective with regards to video. I can tell you that I used to do a video series called 2 Minutes with Todd when I was producing, and I did a mastermind group with the other loan officers in my office and on my team when I was running mortgage branches. And we had a coach come in who was kind of encouraging us along. And when it came to the accountability part, we had to all decide how big of a check did we have to write so it would be painful if we didn't actually follow up on what we committed to do. So I had to write him a $2,500 check. He got to pick the charity of his choice that he was going to give it to if over a 6-month period I did not post my video every week. And lo and behold, I had been really inconsistent prior to that challenge starting, but gosh, for that 6 months, you know, I just rocked it out. And so if you have a friend you can trust, you know, maybe putting a little bit of cash on the line. I've also heard people say that they'll do it with a charity that they don't like, right? So, you know, something that you truly don't believe in and would make you super embarrassed or mad about, that they would do it that way. So that's just maybe one way to think about it. Or we always talk about having a friend be your accountability partner. So if you have a coworker or someone else in your office that you know was on that call last week, certainly team up with them. That would be my recommendation. So like I said, I'm kind of excited to sort of talk you guys through my project. For those of you who don't know who I am or haven't heard me talk before, I'm an executive coach with Building Champions, and I've been in the mortgage business for about 17 years. And so I exited full-time production about a year ago. I still serve as the chief executive officer of a fairly large mortgage team. My team has 10 loan officers now, on track. Last year we did about 115 million, 550 loans. My last year of production, the year before that, though, I really dug in. I kind of felt our team had been stuck in a rut for 3 straight years, and it was a pretty good rut. We were stuck in a rut of 400 loans, about $80 million in production. And I decided to get back in production as my role had shifted. I worked for a company where my wife and I ran Arizona. We built 4 branches, almost 100 employees, and that company got sold, and we switched companies and decided to just get back into origination. And I really felt that $100 million mark was something that I wanted to have in my career and really, really dig in and drive hard. And so I did that, and happy to say that we hit the 100 million the last 2 years that I produced, and we're able to do that with a pretty similar business. But now that I'm coaching clients one-on-one, really often get, what is it that you did? How did you actually dig back in? What was your day like, and what did you do? And what I realized is that I'll share my screen. You'll be able to see my little pet project here. What I did was whoops, doesn't want to let me do it yet. Oh, there we go. Maybe Dave, you can tell me if you see my screen or not. Oh no,
I'll let you know.
My go-to meeting just crashed. my go-to meeting just crashed. So I'm going to actually then, while I get back into go-to meeting, I'm going to I'll multitask. I'll talk to you guys and do this at the same time, which is probably dangerous. But at least you guys can still hear me, so that's good. But really, I realized that throughout my career, I probably suffered from a lot of the same challenges that many of you did, and those challenges were the roller coaster of reactivity, right? Where you get going in any given day, and you start off thinking, hey, this is my day, I got it planned out, you got great intentions, and then lo and behold, you get drawn off, right? Whether it's a text or phone call from your processor, a realtor, or a client, all of a sudden you go into reactive mode instead of proactive mode. And, it's just such a challenge. And so one of the things that I've learned, I've really been a student of productivity for a long time. And, I've really had the benefit of spending some time with Darren Hardy. And so certainly insane productivity is such a magnet for me. It's something I believe in. It's something that has really been, such a big part of how I changed the way that I approached my day and my life. And then really some of the other people that Dave has had on his calls each week are some of the other people that I've really had, that I've really had kind of an attraction to, like Chris Smith when he's talking about lead follow-up, and really how do you integrate that in your day if you're being reactive. Mentioned Darren, really just some of the other super producers that David had on his show. And so what I realized as I was talking to my clients is that I had made a fundamental change when I got back into production. And that was that I blocked off my calendar and made it so that nobody could do anything for me. No one could schedule anything, right? And I had a business development manager who could schedule stuff. I had an assistant who could schedule stuff. I had a business partner who could schedule stuff. My wife could schedule stuff. Are you seeing my screen now, Dave?
I'm not, but I see the little pin by you.
Okay.
Are you seeing the controls to share your screen?
I did a minute ago, but it's disappeared.
Here, let me. I just sent it to you again. Do you see it now?
All right, I see it now. All right, got it. And so what I realized is that the shift I made is that I made this shift and I had a mindset that I was going to win by noon. And so what happened is that prior to that time, anybody who had access to my calendar could schedule for me whenever they wanted. So if somebody said, hey, can I meet with Todd about recruiting a new loan officer at 9 a.m., they would say yes if it was open on my calendar. If it was a business development opportunity and the realtor said, oh, you know what, I'm super busy, I can only meet with Todd at 10:30, they would say yes if it was open on my calendar. And so when I got back into production, I blocked off my day until 11:30 every day. And all it said was call time. That was it. And there were always going to be exceptions to that, right? There was one day a week where I spoke at a RE/MAX office meeting. There were times where there was a business opportunity that I was pursuing and they legitimately only could meet in the morning, and I would make that exception. But ironically, what I found is that those were the days that I didn't actually hit it. I didn't actually nail all of my disciplines, do all the things that were required to be a great loan officer. And, again, maybe some of you have felt this before, but I always felt that I wasn't meeting my potential. I always felt like, you know what, I can do more. I can be a little more efficient. I'm always my own worst enemy, right? Darren always says, you get what you allow, right? So if you're going to allow interruptions, then, that's what you're going to get. And so what I found is that's what I was doing. And so I decided that I was going to get back in production. And if I was going to get back in production, I was going to do it. And I was going to do it by following the path of success that others have laid out. And so, again, that was Darren Hardy, and it was people at Building Champions like, Daniel Harkavy and Bill Hart. And then I always a big member of the mortgage coach community, and, watched all the super producers, people like Josh Metal and others that Davis had on here over the years, and really just kind of learned from them. I studied scripting, I studied time management, I studied planning, and, really in the end, fast forwarding to today, as I'm having these conversations with clients and with the loan officers on my team who I coach, I realized that that I really had created something that worked. And so what I've been doing now for about the past 6 months is I've had clients and friends and that are all kind of embracing this win by noon philosophy. And then I created this day planner to sort of help with that accountability piece that we were talking about before, and had people testing it out the last quarter, really just to get feedback. So I had, people who were running branches and they had their loan officers using it. I had, great producers using it. I had people running teams and having their team members use it, and came up with a product that I'm pretty proud of. Not because, I think it's anything revolutionary, but what I'm proud of it is that the results that the people are getting who've been using it. And so I was kind of excited when Dave and I were talking about this call today to really share it with you guys, because I think that there's an opportunity to use these tactics, use these productivity principles in your day-to-day, whether you use it with the tool that I've created or you use it on your own. It doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of maybe try to take this mindset on where you're going to be productive by noon every day. Because in the end, what I found is that as long as I got all of my daily disciplines, the things that I was required to do to be a great loan officer done by noon, it didn't matter what I did the rest of the day. I could react all day. I could go hang out with friends all day, which unfortunately I didn't do. But, again, what I used it for was to go out there and do other things. And so it really enabled me to have a different outlook on life. And in the end, because I set this as my discipline, as my goal, it worked. And so what I did was I tied in some of the different things, you've seen. I won't spend a ton of time on this first one, but ultimately what it does, it's a quarterly planner. And so again, it's a perfect day to be talking about it, because today is the last day of the second quarter, right? Tomorrow we're in day one of Q3. And so it's a perfect time to be looking at your quarter. And so this tool that you see here is Building Champions one-page simple business plan. I'm going to go over it really quick. And the reason why is because I'll ask Dave to post it up later. Daniel Harkavy, who's the CEO and founder of Building Champions, actually talked about this tool earlier this year. And I know he did a great job on it. And so if you're interested in this tool, it's something that you can get from Building Champions. And it's just great because we all know we should have a business plan. I learned long ago, the number one class I taught to realtors over my whole career was how to use this tool. I got called from real estate companies every year, typically in November, December, to present this. And it was always well received, and it was actually something that people could execute on. And so I stopped asking how many people have a business plan there, because everyone was a bit too embarrassed to raise their hand if they, say that they didn't have one. But what I said was, what percentage of people think they should have a business plan? And, there's different statistics out there, but it's over 90% of people in business believe you should have a business plan. And then this follow-up question is I would always ask is, well, but how many people actually have one? And the answer is, again, depends on which survey you read, but it's between 5 and 10% of people. So everyone knows they should have one. People are intimidated by them, so they typically don't. So this one-page business plan is great. And just real quick, what you'll see is the circle is the theme, right? So, mine says win by noon. Typically for most of my loan officer clients, it's, $10 million or it's, 25 loans or whatever outcome they're looking for. One time mine was peace in France, because I was headed for my 25th wedding anniversary to France for 10 days with my wife with no phone, and needed to have some systems and some projects done in place in order to be able to do that. At the top is outcomes. Again, you'll see here, these are kind of typical outcomes, right? Number of loans closed, unit production, new relationships served, really whatever's going to be important to you. You'll see kind of on the spider legs around that circle are the disciplines that are required, because ultimately, Darren talks about it, you have to be disciplined in what you do. And what I love about disciplines is it's something I can put on my calendar, right? And so again, for me, these were all the disciplines that I was going to be performing before noon. And again, just making sure that I did them every day. And then lastly, on the bottom is a project list, again, because there's always projects you have to do. whether it was a new email drip campaign for realtors or whether it was creating, some new marketing flyers or whatever that is, you typically have projects in your business. And this is just a great tool to track it. So we built it in the planner so that people could be looking ahead at the quarter. And then the next piece really is then you got to break it down, right? So really got to look at it on a weekly basis, and you got to be looking at the week ahead. And so, ultimately there's two pieces to this. There's a week ahead action plan, and then in a minute I'll show you the week ahead time block. And, ultimately, again, there's no one way to do it. And in fact, you'll see the way that I do it isn't really revolutionary. Some of the stuff you all heard before. Certainly those of you who were on Insane Productivity calls earlier this year, I did talk about my daily routine and what I did, what I tracked, and what my team tracks. And so you'll see those things built here into this planner. But ultimately what this does is it takes a lot of what we learned from Darren, takes a lot of what we learned through Insane Productivity, takes like Chris Smith talking about lead follow-up, that kind of stuff, and it really builds it into, let's look at our week and let's see what's important. And so if you look at the page on the right, again, top 3 things, right? Darren talks about your vital few. I can tell you that I went through and I followed Darren's plan on, what was it I was going to focus on last quarter or last year, and it was productivity. And literally almost every single book I read had some name for the top 3 things they were going to do that day or that week, or what their top 3 responsibilities are, as Darren would call it, your vital few. And so this is really what are my top 3 things for the week. Over to the right is what I'm grateful for. Again, that was feedback from numerous of the people who tested it. They said, gosh, you know what? I've seen these other planners where I write down what I'm grateful for every day. And, there's studies out there that say that gets your day off to the right start or closes out your day well. So we added that in there. Then on the left side are just different goals, right? Some personal stuff like sleep and exercise, on time, which is what Darren calls jam sessions, right? So we're going to be tracking jam sessions on here. How much time am I spending working on my business? And then down below are just activities and the results that you're looking for: partner calls, lead and client calls, quality conversations, live meetings. You can see on the left, it kind of define that, and I'll spend a few minutes talking about that in a few minutes. Of course, I've got on the one here that Dave loves, which is annual reviews. You all know that, those of you who know me know I'm a huge proponent of annual reviews, and I did a call with Dave last year on it, and he's had others on here like Lori Richardson, who's got a great call where she talks about doing them as well. And then lastly, really, what are the results that you're getting? And so really, we'll kind of walk through what that looks like in a minute. On the right side is projects, and then sort of just a note for things in the future. And again, what I found was when I sat down and looked at my week and planned ahead, that was the best start to my week. I typically did it on Sunday or Monday, and I was really just looking ahead. And again, my clients who've implemented that have had huge leaps in their focus because they're not coming in Monday morning wondering what it is important to them that week. The next section is just a week ahead time block. And, really what you're doing is looking for an ideal time block, for you. And then you'll see on the left, I kind of gave an outline of what my team does and what I did as a loan officer. And again, you'll see that there's some stuff that you're familiar with, some stuff that others on these calls have talked about, maybe done in a different way. But ultimately, again, it's writing out your time block for your week. So you've got a visual look at it. Not everyone's a visual person, but I find most loan officers tend to work that way. And so it just gives you a great opportunity. And so from a day of the week perspective, for me, Mondays was always focused on setting up my week for success. So if I hadn't done my week ahead look, I was doing my week ahead look. Contracts from the weekend, I was working on my contracts for the weekend. I was really just looking at any appointments that I needed to set later that week that hadn't been set yet. Just really what are those key things I need to do. Tuesdays for us are update call days. My team operates in Phoenix, Arizona. In Arizona, we've got a required part of the real estate contract called an LSU, a loan status update. Realtors can get them anytime they want them. So you're required within 5 days of going on a contract to send it out. Most loan officers don't. And then anytime that they want one, the realtor wants one, they're allowed to ask you for one. And what I found was that when I looked at other loan officers, they were just kind of making it up. They're filling out the form and making up dates. And so we made that be a really central part of our business, that we were going to provide accurate updates, whether they made us look good or bad, and get those out every week, and then make the follow-up phone calls to the buyer, to the listing agent, the buyer's agent. And so that was always great. And again, not revolutionary. You've heard other people on these calls talk about it, but not everyone actually does it. Wednesdays, we call all of our pre-qualified borrowers. The reason we do that is because, there's that old saying, if you don't follow with them, they won't follow up with you. We picked Wednesday because it was easy. It was in the middle of the week, right? You could check in and see how they did over the weekend. If you didn't get a contract from them, are you going to go out shopping next weekend? I can tell you my team this week was calling clients saying, hey, are you in town for 4th of July, or are you heading out of town? And then they were, coaching the ones who were going to be here to say, awesome, great time to buy. There's not a lot of competition. Hopefully you'll find a house and can put an offer in on it. And so that worked out really well. But again, I have a lot of clients who will tell me, oh yeah, I was really disappointed. I saw another one of my clients post on Facebook, they bought a new house, and gosh, I thought we were friends. I did their application. I said, great. Well, what was your plan to follow up with them? And they're like, well, I didn't. And so, there's nothing worse than having someone who you pre-qualified, not even check in with you when at times you go under contract. You gotta be calling them. My team does realtor calls on Thursdays. Again, reason it's Thursday is because one is that other people tend to call earlier in the week and realtors are tired of it. Two is that it's a great way to set them up for the weekend, right? We've all had those 7 o'clock calls from listing or buyer's agent saying, hey, did you pre-qualify Dave Savage? He's going to go out shopping in an hour. Of course, Dave never called. And so you're spending your dinner time with your family, taking an application and pre-qualifying. So when you're calling a realtor on Thursday, checking in ahead of the weekend, what are you doing this weekend? And, they're telling you I'm going on vacation or I'm doing an open house. You can certainly offer to help with that. But more importantly, you're really trying to find out is, do you have anybody who I need to pre-qualify ahead of the weekend? And so it's just a great opportunity to check in proactively with realtors. It's also a great time to give them any updates, right? People say, well, what do I say other than that? Well, what changed in loans with this week? What did the Fed say this week, right? What's happening with interest rates this week? And so great time to do that, or tell success stories of, a mortgage coach scenario, or the new video process that you've implemented to get more business. You can take what you're learning here from Dave and you can use it to do more business. And then lastly, on Fridays, Friday's wrap up and review day, right? There's someone that you probably called earlier in the week that you really need to talk to this week that you didn't get a hold of. Great time to, to make sure that you get a hold of them and just really get prepared for the weekend, make sure that there's no loose ends. And then for me, it was always the annual client review day. There's just no better day than a Friday morning to knock that out. Tended to be a quieter morning in my life. And then, last thing, again, every single day, whether it happened before these calls or after these calls, it sort of depended on my mood, but I always made sure I went into my CRM and I called every lead who hadn't applied yet, right? Chris Smith says 6 calls, that's the magic number. And lo and behold, he says that one of the 2 best times to reach people is between 8 and 10 a.m. So again, for me, calling all leads who had applied, we had a rule of 7, right? We were always going 7. That was the number I'd always heard up until Chris's latest research. And so that way I was really consistent with my 7-time follow-up calls. And then also was calling people who were pre-approved and who hadn't applied. It's always amazing to me how many people just track applications. And that's great, right? You got to get a lot of applications, but if you're not actually getting to the point where you're issuing a pre-qualification, then you're not really going to get them out shopping. What I found is that, once somebody was pre-approved, in my world, they were 77% more likely to close with me once I got a pre-approval letter out. And so I really spent a lot of time on that, and that was a daily discipline part of that calendar. And then, ultimately, you can see there's a finish line at noon, and then I could react the rest of the day, right? I could go to lunch with a partner, I could go to lunch with my wife, I could do something fun. But, ultimately, in the end, planning your week out is going to be one of the critical pieces to success. And then lastly, those of you who were part of Insane Productivity before saw that at one point I had shared my trackers that I used, and I used weekly trackers. The history on it is before I became an official coach with Building Champions in 2014, I had created a one-to-many coaching program for Building Champions. It was 1 coach, 10 loan officers on video in groups of 10, and it was really accountability driven. And at that time at my company, I coached 5 groups of 10. I was coaching 50 loan officers. And then I was also helping 3 other Building Champions coaches who were coaching groups all over the country at all different companies. And it was a lot of fun to watch how these tools helped other people grow. And the picture I shared before, and it's in Facebook, you guys can look it up, or I'm happy to send it to anyone afterwards. I used to take these weekly trackers, I would shrink them down, and I would tape them into my day planner, and then I'd also tape a calendar into my day planner so I could see what was going on. And I ended up making a daily calendar in there. Originally it was weekly. And then that sort of progressed into now what I've created here in this planner. And ultimately, as you look on the right, you can kind of see here's what the daily piece, and there's one for every day of the week. And again, it kind of goes with the same theme that we were talking about. It's got the mini time block on the left. Hey, what is it that I have to make sure I get done today? Who am I meeting with? What am I looking at? On the top 3 for today, what I'm grateful for. Again, all important things. But really where the rubber hits the road is in the activity piece. And so over on the left side, I've got the explanations of it. And I'm happy to send those tracking forms, the weekly ones, to anybody who reaches out. You can just direct message me through Facebook is probably the easiest way, but I'm happy to do that. But ultimately here we created a daily tracker version of it, and I believe that you have to track leads from cradle to grave. And so again, it's a little bit more, potentially more touch points than what other people track, but for me, it's all about how many times do I have to pick up the phone in order to close a deal. And so the loan officers on my team who we've been tracking this for literally know exactly how many dials they have to make on average a day in order to hit their financial goal at the end of the year. And lo and behold, as we're doing a mid-year preparation to review with each of the team members, the team members who are making their calls every day and have hit the number that we came up with based on their historical conversion rates, they're all on track or ahead of hitting the income goal and the closing goal that they set. And no surprise, the people who haven't done their calls that we set as their call number aren't on track. And so, again, it's the whole thing that success leaves clues, and it's just not rocket science. You just have to do it. And then certainly when I talk to the ones who are hitting their goals, they are blocking their time, they're making their calls, they're winning by noon. And ironically, the ones who aren't are the ones who are reacting all morning, getting to the end of the day, and then they're sort of shocked that they weren't able to get it done. And so we start tracking how many partners we call in a day, how many leads we call in a day. Write down actually the names of the people that we converse with, right? Quality conversations. Oftentimes people say, well, I got millennials as clients or realtors who like to text. And all I say is, as long as it's a real conversation, not like, hey, how are you? Good, thanks. Probably not a good conversation. But if you're conversing about a client or an appraisal or something else that's going on, you know what? You can just choose to count that as a conversation. I'm okay with it. Just be consistent in how you track. And the same thing with live meetings, writing down the names. And the reason I write down the names is because that way I can go back and remember. I can look, who is it that I still need to touch, right? Realtor says, hey, have you called Dave Savage about his loan application? I can look and see when did I speak to Dave. Alternately track leads. And then really the important part is the daily activity totals and the daily results totals towards the bottom. Again, you're going to total all that stuff up. It's got on time in there, again, such a critical piece of it, annual reviews in there, and then it's got the results, right? How many leads, apps, pre-quals. Again, I already said why I track pre-quals, not all people do. And then, of course, closed loans. Then it sort of talks about wins for the days. And then one of my favorite things is the bottom left corner, which is the high of my day. One of the things I learned from Daniel Harkavy was this game that they play called low-high. We call it high-low in my family. And it's when I sat down with my daughter at dinner last night, she and I went out, and she said, oh, Dad, what's the high of your day? And so, typically it's dinner with her. So I said, my dinner with you. And, what was the low of your day? And was able to reiterate that. So got that in here as well. So I really love that piece of it. And, ultimately, again, we're also tracking things that are important that Darren talks about, the bookends of your day, morning and evening routine, or again, on time, what he calls jam sessions. There's also a spot to track new habits and also a spot to create your own. And then really, was I proactive or reactive? And so, just really, kind of just the idea of how do I better hold myself accountable? How do I better track? My clients who are struggling with this are actually ironically sending me their weekly totals, because what happens is that at the end of each week, there's a place to total it all up. At the end of each month, then there's a place to total it all up. At the end of each quarter, then there's a quarterly review, and then you set up your plan for the next. And again, I mentioned conversion rate. So there's also a spot where it's tracking conversion rates, because again, I don't see enough loan officers do that. And I had one ask me yesterday, well, is that really important? And the answer is maybe, but I really think it's yes. It's important if you're going to use it to try to improve yourself. And so for me, I'm always using it to say, what was my conversion rate last year? Is it better or worse this year? And then I can look at it and say, okay, have my clients changed? What's different? Certainly different people may have different conversion rates based on their type of business, right? On my team, I've got a couple loan officers who only work with online internet leads, and lo and behold, their conversion rates are lower because they have a ton of bad credit. And so again, for them, they like to compare each other's conversion rates and see how they're doing. That's what they're using as their baseline and their comparison. Other people who are, working with what I'd call normal realtors who are handing them, their leads that they've been coddling, they're going to have a higher conversion rate. So they're going to compare themselves to each other. You can compare that to other loan officers in your office or around the country. And I'm always happy to sort of share some of the numbers that we have as well. So ultimately, my philosophy is to kind of sum it up is just look at yourself and look at your business, right? If you can truly say, I'm making all the calls I'm supposed to make every day, if you can truly say I'm being proactive when I do it, right? So I mentioned Josh Metal earlier. Josh's team calls for 2 hours every day. You can't actually reach his team. He's gone to the extreme that all their phones during that 2 hour time get forwarded to the receptionist, and the only way she'll put a call through to the loan officer is if they say, hey, I just missed a call from Josh. If not, if they call him out,
Marcy, can you hear me? I'm not hearing Todd.
I can hear you, Dave.
Okay. So Todd,
I can hear you, Dave.
okay, good. Well, not good. We lost Todd. Todd, if you hear this, we lost you. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he won't. So first of all, I think this has been a great briefing. You know, I have followed Todd in this quest as he's created this by noon planner. And there, you know, from my perspective, there's just been a lot of strategic thought that's put into this. You know, there's a career of one of the people that I consider one of the most successful mortgage professionals ever to be in this business. You know, not only what he did as a personal producer, what he did as a team, what he's done as a branch leader, and now as Todd has become a coach and mentor on a full-time basis. To me, you know, whether you use this tool and, you know, you buy one from Todd, you use it. Okay, well, let me just finish, Todd. But whether you study it, there's just so much to be gained here. Todd, you're back. We'll let you wrap it up. And then, Dave, I want to get your thoughts on this. That'll put us at about 15 minutes left in the call, and we'll open it up for Q&A. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, I have no idea where I lost you. All I'll throw it out there is this. Best way to reach out to me is email todd@winbynoon.com. I'm happy to answer any questions on the philosophy, on kind of, you know, where I've seen people struggle, where I've seen people have success. If anyone has any, you can always reach me through Facebook as well, although probably the best is still going to be via email. Happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned before, if somebody wanted I call them the old-fashioned ones now, the old just plain weekly trackers, I'm more than happy to send those out as well. Although it's not really officially up and running yet, as Dave said, you guys are the first to hear about it. So if you do go to winbynoon.com, if you want to order a copy of the planner, it's 200 pages of the whole quarter. So it's kind of a big thing. You can see a picture of it on there. I threw a coupon on there, Mortgage Coach, all one word. It'll run through tomorrow. And if you use that coupon, you get priority mail shipping. So it saves you, $7 and change. And, happy to have you guys jump in if it's something that you think you can use, and certainly would love any feedback from people who choose to use it on how they feel it's helped them, where it can be improved as well. So always looking for feedback. But appreciate you guys listening, and thanks, Dave, for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you for, giving us a first look at it. Dave, I know you put a lot of intention, a lot of leadership with your team. What are some of the thoughts after just seeing Todd walk through this?
That thing is badass, Todd. Great job. Jesus, that is awesome. I want one. And so what's really cool about what you did is that you took all the, I really like that you took all that daily intentional, those intentional activities. I still use the Living Your Best Year Ever planner every morning, and I love that you've just kind of built this out for mortgage, kind of with the same thought process in mind. That's really a powerful tool. So if somebody's not using, the Living Your Best Year Ever, even if you are, I'm thinking that this would be a really powerful, just all-encompassing planner that could be a really useful tool. Great job, Todd.
Thanks, appreciate it, Dave.
I'm very impressed. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's very, very impressive, Todd.
Well, you can tell you put I can tell you put a lot of effort. This isn't something somebody just threw together. I mean, this has a lot of there's a lot of intentionality to the whole thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And I have put a link to the website and the discount code. I actually got a copy from Todd just today. So again, this is just hitting the market. I took a few pictures of it. It really is, incredible. I mean, it's a powerful tool to be intentional about your work, to be intentional about your day, and to be intentional around, who you're talking to. I love that, documentation of quality conversations, writing out the name, thinking about who they are. So powerful. And here's the thing. I talk to loan officers all the time that close less than 5 loans a month, that when I ask them, why don't you do a total cost analysis for every family, they tell me they don't have time. And most of them don't have time for on time. Most of them don't have time to really track what they do on a day-to-day basis. But when I interview the most successful loan officers in the country, the ones that are closing over 10 loans a month, the ones that are closing 20 and 30 loans a month, they get there on time. You know, they follow a plan. They prospect 2 hours a day. Every family gets a total cost analysis. You know, meaning getting to the point where it's almost most of them are using video strategically. So, you know, for anyone that's on this call, it's all about productivity. And I think Todd just gave us a big gift walking us through this framework. I hope many of you will sign up and order his book and use it. This will become, you know, in addition to everything we've learned from Darren, I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about the Win by Noon Planner. And anybody that does sign up and use it, please, you know, share your success stories, share what you're doing and how you're doing it within the format of this call. So I also posted the 12-weekly reminders of Insane Productivity. So that is a call, or that is a document that Todd and I also created as a result of the 12-week program with Darren. It's really almost like a cheat sheet that was created that you would keep as a printout in your work area, something that you would just kind of reference. You know, we didn't really design it to be referenced daily, but weekly. Something you would look at weekly and say, hey, am I staying in the zone as an insanely productive mortgage coach leader? So do you want to shine a light on that? You can download that within the handout section of today's call, as well as, you know, it's available in the Mortgage Coach support page. You can just, you know, go to Mortgage Coach support, type in, you know, Insane Reminders, and get a link to it. So I wanted to remind people about that. So let's go into, Todd, is there anything else you want to say on this before we just go into some Q&A and some other topics that come up?
No, you know, the only other thing I would throw in there, because I don't know if I hung up on it, did you guys hear me talk about Josh's team and sort of how they approach that time frame?
I don't think so.
All right, I think that was right when I got cut off. And so that's the last thing I would say on there is that just make sure when you block off that time, you know, Dave already said it as on time, but, you know, I still find that most people say, okay, I'm going to call this morning for an hour or whatever that time frame is, but they're still answering inbound calls. They're still in their email box. And so I love what Josh has implemented with his team of loan officers is if you call him, they've gone as far as that all of their phones are forwarded during that time to the receptionist, so you can't even get a member of his team. So if Josh leaves someone a voicemail and they call him back, then she will say, if they say, I just missed Josh's call, then she'll put him through. But if not, then she's going to say, you know, I'm sorry, Josh is currently assisting a client. He'll be available after noon. Is that okay if he calls you then? And so they're really proactive in that part. They stay out of their email inboxes. They have their outbox open, you know, basically the sent items. And so they're sending emails out of there so that they're not distracted by all of those other emails and sort of just those other productivity tips that we've all talked about on this call before, right? Turn off the notifications, you know, all the other things that Darren talks about to be more proactive. You know, you've got to limit those distractions because, you know, I don't know about the rest of you, but certainly for me, I'm my worst enemy on it. So once I got really, really disciplined on ignoring the phone calls, which did make my wife mad, but nonetheless, she understood. You know, once I got really good at not working in my email inbox, but working in my outbox, it made huge leaps and bounds on that. So that'd be my other encouragement for everyone.
Love that. So we've had a couple of questions come in. I want to make sure we close the loop on that quickly. Some people were asking the cost. If you go to the page, the website, you go to order, it's $35 per individual. That means it's 1 quarter. So it's a quarter by quarter book, and you get 1 quarter. If you order the $99 annual subscription, I take it that, Todd, you will send out an updated binder every quarter. Is it
yeah, you'll get one absolutely. You'll get one every quarter. It'll be out 2 weeks ahead of the quarter starting, so you can get your business plan in there and start, you know, getting the calendar all filled out. But ultimately, it's just a commitment up front that you're going to get all 4 quarters in the year on an ongoing basis. I will throw out there, if you want one that's unbound, I've actually got a couple of people who've used it who have their own really fancy notebooks they like, and so we can mail out an unbound printed out version as well that you can actually punch yourself and put in whatever planner it is that you love to use.
Cool, man. Well, I can't wait to see how this is adopted in our community. Can't wait to hear success stories. And Todd, thank you for giving us an early release and walking us through this. Michelle, any thoughts from you? Any comments on what Todd just shared, or any direction you'd like to take the call?
Sorry, I was multitasking, getting ready to order one of the books to take a look at. So sorry about that. Todd, what a great book, a great idea. I mean, we all know that our ROI is watching what we do and being able to measure it is probably what helps us be successful. So great job. I don't know how you found time to do it, but congratulations on that. And I'm super excited to take a look at it. And I took a lot of good notes on things that I wasn't doing. So I love it. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
Right on. Right on. Well, I want to make sure we address some of the questions that have come up and some of the things in our Facebook group. Derek had asked a question about, you talked about a video, you talked about social proof. How are people in the community collecting surveys post-closing? Makes mention of social survey and is it Metrics? I'm not familiar with that one. I do know a number of mortgage coach power users and leaders that are using social survey. I'm a big fan of it. I've seen it used very successfully. In fact, I think Dave Gallegos, you and your organization use social survey. Is that right, Dave?
That's correct. We started it about a year ago now, and then it's become an enterprise thing at Hallmark. But at the corporately they've added it. But I'm just a big fan because it just automates it, and we're able to collate the data where in the past, we've always surveyed people, but we only had no way to collate data, and that's what this does. So it's really powerful. Plus, it automatically will repost that information to you for your social media accounts, which is really a huge time saver. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, and we have an evolving partnership and friendship with the social survey guys. So if you do reach out to them, let them know that you're on the Mortgage Coach team, and let them know you're referred by Mortgage Coach. Are there any other tools or ideas that speak to what Derek has here around how to collect social proof and surveys from clients? Does anyone else have another tool they use, or some consideration for Derek here? Thoughts for the community?
I'm looking at my personal notes real quick because my team's been looking into it, and social survey is one of the ones that we reached out to. I'm trying to remember the name of the other ones I'm looking up right now, but I've got a couple clients. I found about 3 or 4 that seem to be widely used, and some of them, they all have different places that they link up to, meaning, where the surveys go, whether it's to Google or to Facebook. Some people say it's okay to put them to Yelp. Others say that it's not, because that technically, I guess, violates Yelp's user agreement. You're not supposed to be asking people to fill out surveys there. They're supposed to be doing it automatically. I think some of the ones that we looked at, and again, never really made a final decision besides social survey, was one called Podium, and the other one has a bird name in it. So I'm trying to find it because this guy continues. They're very good at their follow-up.
I think it's called Bird Eye. And
Bird Eye, that's it.
So let's do this. Todd, if you don't mind adding a comment here, I'm going to give folks a chance to raise, if anybody on the call wants to raise their hand and say something. By the way, if you could make me an organizer, looks like, am I an organizer? No, I'm not sure. Oh, I know. I see that there. So Ron has his hand raised. Ron, I have unmuted you. I don't know whether you had a question or you had something to share, but you've been unmuted. How you doing, Ron? Right. I'm going to remute you, Ron. One more chance to unmute things on your side. Ron? Yeah, remuted you. I've lowered your hand. If anyone else wants to raise their hand and be unmuted, we'd love to, this is a mastermind. If you have questions or comments, let us know. Going once, going twice. Anyone else have any feedback for Derek here? And please add some comments to answer his question. Anything else from anybody? All right. So Corey said, how do you help first-time home buyers when the median sales price is above conforming loan limits? So Corey, let's bring that into another call. I don't think we have time to cover that. And that's that'd be like a great call for our Thursday call, and some other training calls that we have. I'm also going to mention to our support team that this question came in. Not necessarily what I call an insane productivity question or topic, but if we had more time, I'd still cover it. And there are no bad questions. I do think Dave Gallegos, this comment you had, how are we preparing for the holiday? Like what does an insane productivity leader do on a holiday like this? And I think it's pretty safe to assume we recover and we have fun and we are present with family members. That's important. But I don't know, Dave, would you like to put more color on this question, or do you have any leadership to provide?
Yeah, I think because not everybody's in the same spot in their business, right? So, the big producers that have been doing this for a long time are, you should rest and relax and recharge, and you probably have some really good strategies already in place for how to respond. I know Giuseppe, one of my top producer, has a strategy for the weekends and for holidays and for things like that, where because they get leads over the weekend and we don't want them to not feel like they're being taken care of. And he developed an autoresponder email for new people where he's just asking them, hey, yeah, we can do this. Do you need to talk to someone today, or is Monday going to be okay? So when it's over Monday. And he was very surprised to find out he used to think he had to take every lead call over the weekend. And what he found out when he did that, and all of our folks have adopted it, is that 8 out of 10 times the customer's like, yeah, no, Monday's fine. We don't need to talk today. But he thought he had to talk to him today. And so they all got a link to fill out an online app, but that they would talk on Monday. And then every now and then there's somebody that feels like they got to talk right away. So that's just a good strategy to figure out that you don't have to just do everything that you don't have to be always on call. You can create systems and processes. But for the people that are newer in the business and they're just getting their businesses going, I think it's maybe a different strategy. And so if you're going to be available and you're going to be around, you should let referral partners know that, and don't do it if you're not. But if you're going to be around, there's a lot of people that aren't going to be working, but you never know the deal that you just did, what it's going to lead to. So if you're going to be available and you want to be available this weekend, there's anything wrong with wanting to do it if you're just getting your career going and developing new relationships. And so let those people know that. And however you do that, phone calls, emails, video texting, anything like that, just to let them know. It's like, hey, if you need anything and you're working, I'm available. That's all. That was my tip.
What a great video to post to Facebook. Right? Great video is, hey, realtor friends and clients, while all the other loan officers are off on vacation this weekend, I'm working. So if you need help with a client, a pre-qual, or just have general loan questions, give me a call.
Boom.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Just like that.
Short and sweet.
And again, if you're not working, you're not working. So no big deal.
Well, but I also love that you said that your guy had a conversation with the realtors, right? What are your expectations? Because oftentimes I find that loan officers, we all know as consumers we want instant gratification, but and we always assume then that our realtors are expecting that we're going to call within 15 seconds to their lead. But oftentimes, if just like your guy found out, it's not the case. They're giving it to you on the weekend when they get it, but they're okay with you reach out on Monday. But that's just a conversation, right? And kind of goes back to my Thursday call, right? Hopefully you're going to ward those last minute things off, but it's going to happen. There is going to be the person who gets off the plane on Saturday morning, picks up the phone, calls a realtor and says, hey, I'm in town and I'd love to look at houses. So, but again, don't be afraid to ask your referral partner what they expect.
It's that age-old thing. A lot of times we're our own worst enemy because we just make assumptions that aren't true. We tell clients, love to have the application back within 72 hours. Like, you're buying a house, give me the application back tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, it's just funny. It's our brains that usually twist this out of proportion and not the client. So just asking that question, do you need to talk to somebody this weekend, or oh no, I'm fine. I don't need to talk till Monday. And so I was like, oh, great. Because they probably don't want to talk to you on the weekend either sometimes, right? So it's just interesting.
Love it. Michelle, any advice you have or any leadership you have around how to spend this holiday?
I'm gonna go off of Darren Daly's this weekend. If anybody listened to Darren Daly this morning, he talked about this being halftime and time for us to relook at what our goals are, and that at halftime it doesn't mean the year is over. It means that now we get to refocus on our goals and what we wanted to do, because we can still accomplish them by the end of the year. So I'm taking a little bit of time for myself, but I am going to work a lot on revisiting my goals, making sure that seeing what I'm hitting, what I'm not, looking at where my weaknesses are. I mean, a lot of you know that I transitioned over the last 30 days, so my weaknesses are blaringly obvious right now. So I'm going to work a lot on filling in those and really focusing on our positives as well, so that when we start back to work on Wednesday, or my team comes back on Wednesday, that we are refocused and re-energized.
Love it. Edward, thank you for posting a video for review. I literally got it, right before today's call, so I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I will give it a look, give you some feedback, and any other leaders in the mortgage coach community want to give Edward some comments or feedback, please do that. Again, I remain as passionate as ever is using video to add value to clients and to tell your stories and strategies in the market is essential to maximizing productivity. So I hope for all you that said you were going to do a video, you create a video. The mortgage coach video it's the easiest. And to me, it's just like, it's the requirement. If you're going to be a modern mortgage professional with a video, it's add a video to your total cost analysis to help your family make an effective and confident decision. And then, of course, I'm not going to repeat everything I said in a call last week. Listen to the recording of that, and there's a lot of other ways that you can use video to be incredibly productive. Let us know if you sign up for Todd's Win by Noon. And we'd love to know who's engaging with in that. Let's bring that into next week's conversation. Let's see, we've got just a couple minutes. I'm going to push a poll question. Let us know what you thought of today's call. How was today's call? We always want to get your feedback. Did you get tons of value and some great takeaways? Let us know what you thought. So please answer this survey question as we wrap up today's call. Also, please be active. Ask questions in our Insane Productivity Facebook group. I do give everybody multiple opportunities to raise their hand and ask questions in the GoToMeeting. So, while we come here with ideas to talk about things to share to improve productivity, we also leave plenty of bandwidth for you to, either speak personally or raise your hand. With that said, I see that no one new has raised their hand. Let me check questions just to see if any last-minute questions have come in. Looks like Roberta ordered the book. Someone had trouble ordering the book, so for whoever had trouble, it's probably on your end, because we are getting word that it's working. And be sure to use the Mortgage Coach referral code to save on shipping. And all the other questions have been answered. One person asked if Todd still has any bandwidth for coaching. Reach out for Todd one-on-one. His contact information, and you can reach out through Facebook. Todd, anything else? Any closing thoughts as we wrap up today's call?
No, just thank you. I appreciate all of you who listen. Certainly look forward to feedback and just appreciate everyone who's ordering it, because I'm looking forward to seeing how I can help you all improve your business and life.
Love that. I'm going to just repeat this quote. I pulled this quote out of Todd's book from Jim Rohn. Either you run the day or the day runs you. And I'm gonna be thinking about that for the next 3 days through the holiday. Obviously, I'm going to let the day run me a few of the days coming up. But today and next week after the holiday, I'm gonna really dig a little deep on this. It's a great quote, Todd. All right, everybody, have an awesome day. Both Michelle and Dave, thank you for your leadership that you bring to this call. Have an incredible holiday, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Happy 4th, everyone.
All right. And come back next Friday. Remember, this is a weekly call every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. We're here to focus on productivity, make you more productive. Be sure to tell your peers, tell your manager. We want to have as many mortgage coach leaders on this call as possible. See you next Friday.